Hey, welcome to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Think Thursday is all about your beautiful, brilliant human brain. We're talking neuroscience. We're talking behavior change. We are talking about your mindset. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Hey there, welcome to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist. You know, Think Thursday is all about our beautiful, brilliant human brains. We talk neuroscience, behavior change, and mindset. And today, that opening feels especially appropriate because yesterday, July 22nd, was World Brain Day. So, in honor of that, we're going to spend a little time appreciating the extraordinary brain that makes every part of your life possible. Now, before we go any further, notice what your brain is doing right now. It is taking the sound of my voice and turning it into recognizable words. It is retrieving the meaning of those words from memory, connecting them into ideas, and deciding which parts deserve your attention. At the same time, your brain is helping regulate your breathing, your movement, your body temperature, and countless other processes you rarely have to think about consciously. It may also be reminding you about something you forgot to do, replaying a conversation from yesterday, or wondering what you're going to eat later. Because apparently interpreting a podcast and running your entire body isn't enough to manage at once. Most of that work happens quietly, without recognition and without any direct instruction from you. And today we're going to talk about your brain as a prediction system, a learning system, a protection system, and a relationship system. Mostly, this episode is a reminder that your brain is not simply an organ you should be trying to improve. It is the living, changing system that has carried you through every experience you've ever had, and it is still learning. So, World Brain Day is recognized every year on July 22nd, and the theme for 2026 was Brain Health, Access for All. That theme is a very important reminder that brain health is not a luxury. Education, diagnosis, neurological care, treatment, and support should not be available only to the people with the most resources or the easiest access to specialists. Every person has a brain, and every person deserves the opportunity to understand it, to care for it, and to receive help when something goes wrong. Here on Think Thursday, we often focus on what we can do individually to support our brains and change our behavior. And that work matters, but individual effort is only a part of the picture. People also need reliable information, appropriate medical care, supportive communities, and environments that make healthy choices possible. So, as we celebrate the brain, I also want to acknowledge that caring for brain health is both personal and collective. And my hope is that access for all is really something that can happen. So let's begin with the brain as a prediction system. I think we've probably talked about this numerous times on the podcast. And we sometimes imagine the brain as a camera that simply records what's happening around us, but your brain is much more active than that. It is constantly using past experience to predict what is happening now and what is likely to happen next. When you reach for a familiar coffee cup, your brain already has an idea of how heavy it will be. When you hear the beginning of a familiar song, your brain anticipates what comes next. And when someone pauses in the middle of the sentence, you may find yourself mentally completing it for them. Your brain does this because prediction allows you to move through the world more efficiently. It doesn't wait for every piece of information before it begins creating meaning. It makes its best prediction and then adjusts as new information arrives. And this is incredibly useful, but it also helps explain why familiar thoughts and behaviors can feel so automatic. When you have repeated the same reaction or behavior many times, your brain becomes very good at predicting that you will do it again. The familiar pathway requires less uncertainty and less effort. Now, that does not mean the old pattern is permanent. It simply means your brain has more evidence for the old pattern than it does for the new one. When you begin changing a behavior, that new choice is going to feel awkward and sometimes unnatural. We often interpret that discomfort as evidence that something's wrong. But of course, unfamiliar does not mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar simply means your brain has not practiced it enough yet. And that brings us to the brain as a learning system. Your brain is made up of cells communicating through intricate networks. Every thought, movement, emotion, memory, and decision involves patterns of activity within those networks. The brain's ability to adapt and reorganize itself in response to experience is that neuroplasticity that we've talked about so many times. And when I say neuroplasticity, I think sometimes people hear me and think that we can completely reinvent our brains by thinking positively for a few minutes each morning. And that isn't quite how it works. The brain can change, but it usually changes through attention, repetition, experience, and time. What you practice matters. When you repeatedly react to uncertainty with worry, the brain becomes practiced at worry. When you repeatedly avoid discomfort, avoidance becomes easier to access. But when you pause, when you name what you are feeling, when you reconsider an old thought or make a different choice, you give the brain new information. One different choice does not erase a well-established pattern, but it does provide evidence that another response is possible. With repetition, that alternative becomes more familiar. And this is one of the most hopeful things about the human brain. The fact that a response is automatic does not mean it is your destiny. It means it has been rehearsed. And what has been rehearsed can be examined, interrupted, and gradually replaced with something that serves you better. Your brain is not learning and predicting simply to make you more productive. It is also trying to protect you. And this is where I think we often misunderstand our brains. We become frustrated with our tendency to notice what could go wrong, resist uncertainty, return to familiar habits, or react strongly to something that doesn't seem especially threatening. We ask, why is my brain doing this to me? But your brain may not be working against you. It may be trying to protect you with information that is outdated, incomplete, or no longer useful for the life you are living now. If a behavior reduced discomfort in the past, the brain may encourage you to repeat it, even when it creates problems in the long term, right? That's how many of us are, why many of you are listening to this podcast, because of your relationship with alcohol and because it did reduce discomfort in the past. The brain does not always distinguish between what helped you thrive and what simply helped you get through a difficult moment. Sometimes it keeps offering an old survival strategy long after the circumstances have changed. And that's why curiosity is more useful than criticism. Instead of asking what's wrong with me, you can ask, what is my brain predicting right now? What danger does it believe it is avoiding? What past experience might it be using to interpret this moment? Understanding the pattern does not mean you have to obey it. It simply allows you to respond with awareness instead of shame. You can appreciate that your brain is trying to protect you while also teaching it that a new response is safe. Your brain is also a relationship system. Human beings do not develop, learn, or regulate themselves entirely on their own. Our brains are shaped through connection with other people. A familiar voice can help us feel calmer. A meaningful conversation can change the way we understand an experience. And shared laughter can interrupt stress, while loneliness and isolation can affect both emotional and cognitive health. This is why brain health is not simply about completing crossword puzzles or remembering where you left your keys. Brain health is also supported by movement, by sleep, by learning, by emotional well-being, relationships, purpose, and participation in the world around us. Your brain likes to be engaged. It benefits when you learn something unfamiliar, when you practice a skill, have a thoughtful conversation, take a walk, listen to music, solve a problem, or become curious about something that you do not yet understand. And none of those activities has to be performed perfectly to count. You don't have to master another language, become a concert pianist, or read a neuroscience textbook. You just have to try things. Try a new recipe. Take a different route on your walk. Ask someone you don't know about their day, about their life. And finally, learn how to use the feature on your phone that everyone else apparently figured out like 3 years ago. Take the time to figure it out. The point is engagement. Your brain is not asking you to become impressive, it's asking you to stay involved. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about your brain is that it is still becoming. The brain you have today is not identical to the brain you had 5 years ago. It holds new information, new interpretations, new connections, and new evidence about what you can survive. It carries the effects of relationships, challenges, losses, successes, mistakes, and experiences you never expected to have. Some of those changes happened because you deliberately worked toward them, and others happened because life required you to adapt. You have already changed your brain simply by living. That means whenever you begin changing a behavior, you are never starting from nothing. You are starting with a brain that has spent a lifetime learning how to learn. It may resist. It may prefer the familiar. It may produce thoughts suggesting that change is too difficult, too risky, or unlikely to last. But it can also gather new evidence. It can learn that discomfort is survivable. It can learn that an urge does not have to become an action. It can learn that a thought can be questioned, an emotion can be felt without being feared. And a familiar pattern is not the only pattern available. Your brain is not fixed, but it also does not change simply because you want it to. It changes through what you repeatedly offer it. That's why small choices matter. And every time you pause before reacting, practice a new skill, protect your sleep, move your body, connect with someone you care about, or choose curiosity over self-criticism, you are teaching your brain something. So, in honor of World Brain Day, perhaps the invitation is not to find one more thing your brain should be doing better. Maybe it is simply an opportunity to appreciate what it has already done. Your brain has carried every moment you've made. It has adapted to every season you've survived. It has allowed you to love people, learn things, change your mind, tell your story, laugh at something ridiculous, and imagine a future that does not exist yet. It's made mistakes. It's made inaccurate predictions. It has worried about things that have never happened and occasionally forgotten why you walked into a room. It is not perfect. It was never supposed to be. It is alive. It's adaptable. It's protective. It's connective. And it is still becoming. It's becoming that beautiful, brilliant human you that is here because of your beautiful, brilliant human brain. That's all I have for you today. Until next time, choose peace, and I will see you on Monday.